welcome everybody to this webinar on fixing fast fashion. Thank you very much for spending part of your Saturday here with us today. So this event has been organised by Chichester and Arun Green Party. The reason we set this up today is because as a local Green Party, we do regularly organise meetings to discuss particular policy areas, sometimes just for members, sometimes like today, we try and make them public. This topic was actually suggested by one of our members. I think, Maureen, it might have been you. So hopefully it was you and you're here with us today. But it's been a really interesting topic for me personally to look into. I'm really excited about the speakers who are able to join us today, and a huge thanks to them for joining us. I think we are going to have some great discussions about this topic today. So the format is going to be our three fantastic guest speakers. So first up will be Puja from the slow fashion movement, then Philippa, who will talk to us about her PhD on sustainability and fashion from the consumer point of view, and then Rachel from West Sussex County Council's waste prevention team, because we were talking about this earlier, but this topic, it's local, it's national, it's global. Our speakers reflect that. I think the people joining us today also reflect that. And as a Green Party, we know that our policies and our actions are all connected in this way as well. So we're going to hear from our three speakers first. And I think probably what we'll do is if maybe people want to save their questions for after we've heard from all three. And you're very welcome to put your questions and comments in the chat as we go along, so we can come back to them at the end. And also anyone who's just joined, please do use the chat to say hello and introduce yourself. I think we do as well have people from different local projects here today, so please feel free to share a link to your work in the chat as well. And yeah, we are recording today, so just in case anybody wants to keep their camera off. And if I could ask people just to stay muted while others are speaking, please. But again, just use the chat box for any comments and questions. So I think, are we all set? Anne, is that all? Are we all good? Okay, so I think then I'd like to hand over to our first speaker, which is Puja from the slow fashion movement.
Hello, everyone. I'm Puja from the slow fashion movement. I'm very excited for today's conversation. And if I would like to introduce myself very quickly, maybe in 15 seconds, I'm serving as an executive board member for Slow Fashion Movement, which is a global movement. We are headquartered at the Netherlands. We have over 35 local chapters, and we are completely run by volunteers. We have over 150 ambassadors across the globe. And our mission is to educate and empower fashion consumers to make informed choices. And I'm very happy that we are doing this conversation about fighting fast fashion, because nothing like it is the right time to speak about a conversation of this sort. So I'll start with a presentation, maybe. Amazing. So I'll start off with the very first slide, which talks a little bit about our movement. We are a movement which is community-led, community-driven. We have over 27 volunteers who are working day in, day out. And our mission is to raise awareness about the social and environmental cost of fashion, from garment workers' rights to carbon emission, and empowering individuals to make informed choices, conscious choices, guided by values of sustainability, inclusivity, transparency, and collaboration. We are building a responsible fashion future together. So it's pretty exciting to see you all here. I would love to maybe invite you to write down an estimate number of clothes you have right now in your closet. So how many clothes are you in your wardrobe that you haven't worn in the past 1 year, maybe? So and there's no shame, no zam. I mean, just write a number. Let's just have fun, because I strongly believe that now, when we take this moment to think about what we already have, how many pieces are hanging there, for most of us, it is more than we would actually like to admit. That studies are showing that at least 50% of the clothes in an average person's closet are unworn. In fact, there are stats out there which says that 80% of the time we wear only 20% of the clothes. So this simple question reminds us that the change doesn't always start with buying better. Sometimes it is about appreciating the clothes we already have. So And I know you all are sure to have some incredible stories about your slow fashion journey because this is something that comes very naturally to all of us from part of the world, from the culture that we all belong to. I would actually draw your attention to what is fast fashion, even before talking about why do we need to fight fast fashion. So, I mean, when we are talking about fast fashion, we are not just talking about the trendy clothes, we are actually talking about a system change. Fast fashion churns out cheap, trendy clothes at high speed relied on overproduction, low wage, and heavy resources used to keep consumers buying constantly. As a result, the mountains of textile waste, which can be seen from the satellites nowadays, pressures on natural resource and an industry that's responsible for up to 10% of the global carbon footprint is out there. The fast fashion isn't just about the style, the trends, it's also a lot about the cycle of overconsumption, overproduction, exploitation that we urgently need to slow down. So these are the keywords which actually defines it. I'll draw your attention to the three quick production scale stats, which would make you realize what fast fashion is doing right now. If you see these numbers, these are absolutely bewildering. But unfortunately, these are the truth out there. We have resources. I'll share with you the resource if you want to read more about these numbers. Let's look at the scale. I mean, in 2020, in 2000, in fact, the world produced about 58 million tons of fibers. And by 2020, that number has exponentially doubled to 109 million tons. And by last year, what we saw, the stats which were revealed in reports, were saying that it's touching 124 million tons. While driving this growth is primarily the fossil fuel-based synthetic fibers. I mean, most of the clothes today produced are synthetic fabrics, which now makes up to like over 50, a little over 59%. And these materials are driven from oil, from gas, meaning that every polyester shirt or dress added to our dependence on fossil fuel and microplastic. Even since, if we talk about the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015, the fiber production has risen by 34 million tons. So while we talk about cutting emission, fashion production keeps accelerating. And it's quite intriguing to see that while we are highlighting why reducing demand and changing the consumer behavior patterns is crucial, our stats over here reveal something very different. I would like to flag that these numbers that you are seeing on your screen are from Textile Exchange, from Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and from UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. Taking to the next slide. What is your fashion? I mean, now this is the favorite part of me because I think that that's the beauty about fashion. We all love clothes. We all love that second skin that we wear everywhere. But if fast fashion is all about speed, about acceleration, about mass production, keep trending clothes with regards to people and planet, then slow fashion is the absolute opposite of that. Slow fashion takes a conscious, holistic approach. It values quality over quantity, value over volume, people over planet, and longevity over trends. It's about being mindful. It's about being of what we wear, of where it's coming from, who has made it, and were they paid the fair wage. So it promotes ethical production, fair wage, sustainable fabrics and materials used while production happens, while encouraging us to buy less, to choose better, and to make our garments last by taking care of them. And that's exactly what slow fashion is. In fact, in short, if I would say slow fashion isn't just about trend, it's a movement towards fairer and more responsible future of fashion that we all love. And when we talk about slow fashion, it goes without saying that we cannot not mention the hierarchy of need, which was created by Sarah Lazarovic. She is the creative director, author of the book. I'm sure many of you might have heard of Bunch of Pretty Things I Did Not Buy. An amazing book, I must say, you must read that. And she's also an environmental scientist, and she came up with this idea of hierarchy of need. It perfectly captures the spirit of slow fashion by reminding us that buying should be our last resort, not our first instinct. In fact, at the bottom, if you see in this pyramid, I mean, action, use what you have, borrow, swap, thrift. only at the top we see buy new, only when we don't have any other option left. This simple visual flips consumer culture, and I'm sure you all will agree to it that on its head and help us more consciously that we need to not just consider our own wishes and wants and our needs, but also the need of the planet right now as we speak. Um, since I already mentioned to you what is fast fashion, what is slow fashion, it will be quite super easy for us to maybe, come to this slide because, and I'm sure that you would like to put in the first word that comes into your mind when we think of slow fashion. So what is that one word? That could be anything. It could be craftsmanship, it could be sustainability or the responsible sourcing, mindful shopping, anything. Maybe just take 5 seconds to type down that word which comes in your mind when we think of slow fashion. As you continue to write those words which comes on top of your mind, here are a few words which actually came to my mind when I was doing a contrast between fast and the slow fashion. Many a times we think slow and fast fashion are antonyms of each other. But if you see the difference, I mean, it's quite insightful to see that since fast fashion talks a lot about cheap and trendy clothes, mass production, worn just few times and disposed of, exploitation of people and planet. On the contrary, slow fashion is all about quality and timelessness, classic designing, the thoughtfully made garments that we love, we wear, we rewear, we reuse, we upcycle, and then last we downcycle it, respecting people and planet. And think of it like this, that fast fashion is like a disposable snack, fast and easy to make or get, just order it and gone in a flash. Slow fashion, on the contrary, is that home cooked meal, nourishing, lasting, and made with care. The choice is ours, as per se. Do we need to just snack or we need to enjoy the savoir? So that's such a crucial decision we all make every day. And next slide tells us the reason why we are today meeting here. You know, the topic today is fighting fast fashion, and we need to definitely focus a point on why we need to do this, why we need to fight fast fashion. The reasons are quite a few, but I will actually draw your attention to the two major part of it, and that would be the environmental and the social. Give me a moment. I will just get the slide. It's out of many reasons, which actually helps us calculate the true cost of our garments. I will take the attention to environmental and the social aspect of it. You will again see few numbers that I have added to the slide. And now, while we are talking about the true cost of fashion beyond the price tag that we see while we are purchasing garments in the shop at the mall, every garment has a social and environmental footprint, and that's the cost. Environmental impact, fashion contributes 10%. That's what the stats are saying. But the speed at which the production is happening and the consumption is happening, I guess we are still exponentially increasing those numbers. For example, a t-shirt, just a simple t-shirt takes about like 2,700 liters of water to cultivate that much amount of cotton to make that t-shirt. Or a pair of denim, which takes 10,000 liters of water to cultivate cotton to make that one pair of denim, generating millions of tons of textile waste every year. And on the other side, as you see, social impact. I mean, many garments are made under unsafe working conditions with low wage, with often in countries with minimal labor protection acts. I don't want to, but like to actually mention about the Rana Plaza incident that happened years back. That's how even fashion revolution started. There were over 1,135 people who actually died under the building, which was predictable. Everybody knew that that might just collide because the building was in a very bad state, but people, the government workers were still forced to work in that condition. But yes, that also drew attention to the global uh, audiences, the brands who were under speculation when Rana Plaza happened, but we wish it would never happen again. Um, Another quiz. I'm just kind of, putting all this in between so that you may just have fun and you could write. Let's say if a polyester t-shirt is there and we discard that, how many years does it take to decompose? You can write your answer in the chat, but I can give you a hint. It's definitely in centuries. In fact, not just the length of years that it takes to decompose, while decomposing, it also exhibits poisonous gases. So not just polyester, most of the synthetic fabrics that are disposed of, which are not worn much because the quality of the clothes are not good, they exhibit really poisonous gas in the landfill and therefore in the atmosphere. And while you would be guessing it, my answer, may I just say the answer already? Many of you might know a polyester shirt will take about 200 plus years to decompose if it's in the landfill, the maximum out here. Why sustainability in fashion matters? We all love clothes over here. And I don't know if anybody says, no, I'm not much into fashion. I would disagree because if you're wearing clothes, of course, we all wear clothes. We are into fashion. Everyday choices make us intrinsically connected to fashion industry. And that's where I was quite intrigued when I saw this particular documentary. I will try to run this. I hope it works. And this is just a trailer of a beautiful documentary about the ugly side of fashion. Um, so let's see if it's running on my screen. I would really recommend for you to watch this. It talks basically about um, this film is an investigation, the environmental disasters that are caused by fashion industry, especially the textile related to like the pollution in the river and the harm that makes to the ecosystem. So it's a very powerful reminder of the real world consequences of fast fashion and why the movement like art, like the slow fashion movement, are so important. Um, so maybe I'll share the link with you if that's okay. So I actually want to ask you, like, I hope that I wish that you could have seen this trailer. But I would like to know that as a consumer, what is that factor that influences your choice? I mean, is the price point, the convenience, things are found online nowadays everywhere across the globe, or ethics, or the trend, the style? What is that one reason why you would buy a piece of garment? Maybe you can leave that in the comment section in the chat. Um, and while we talk about prices, it looks like a bargain, and convenience is more quick and easy in today's day and age. Ethics about caring for the planet and people definitely is so crucial a conversation. And trend is something that is driving the fast fashion game. The micro trends, there are brands which are actually producing a new collection every week, 52 micro seasons, whereas ideally in a fashion industry, there should be two major seasons. So type your choices in the chat, and this exercise should probably reflects how our daily decisions shape the bigger fashion system and why we even the small changes can make a lot of difference. So, and while you do that, I'll already start with the next slide. Very quickly, there are a few more numbers here. Very quick consumer role data point here because um, while at Slow Fashion Movement, we've seen that, we are a community facing movement. We've realized that the power of consumer is extremely, extremely important, changing the fashion ecosystem. And here some of these, the encouraging news is that behavior change actually works. Studies are showing that participants in fashion detox challenges, cutting down on buying new clothes, are up to like 60%. Wearing their existing clothes is cutting down to 40%, and lowering their personal carbon footprint by 15 to 20%. And these are stats from CMS 2023. Science also gives us a very clear guidance. For example, the Hot or Cool Institute found that to stay within the 1.5 degree Celsius carbon budget, individuals could actually just resort to buying 5 new garments a year, not more than that. Well, in right now, in comparison to it, what's happening is there are 68 per person, 68 garments per person, which are being actually bought per annum. And finally, collective action matters. Campaigns like the Greenpeace Detox, while mobilizing 700,000 supporters, and slow fashion movement, we actually started with a challenge in 2018. Very casually, we were talking about let's do this challenge. And sitting in Amsterdam, like at the table, a group of climate activists, all of us were discussing, let's do a fashion challenge, create a social media page, and we did that. And today, while I speak with you about fighting fast fashion, we have 32,000 people who have already signed up for a fast fashion detox. And that's the beauty of collective action. What can you do? I mean, I'm sure we all have our own ideas of slow fashion. Many a times I've heard people saying sustainable brands are very expensive, but well, why do we need to buy even sustainable brands when we can actually buy less, buy better, support local artisans, craftsmanship, and local small businesses, repair, swap, and trip, because these practices are not at all expensive. Going to the next slide. Here is the page from the Slow Fashion Movement's website, which actually reflects that the Slow Fashion Season Challenge, which started in 2018, has gathered over 32,000 people who've signed up. I can share the link with you on chat after the presentation gets over, which is about to get over. You can take a challenge. It's a 90 days fast fashion detox. I'm very sure many of you are already boycotting fast fashion, but and you would say, what's the point of signing up for a challenge when I'm already doing that for years? Let me just tell you that it brings so much strength and so much power to the community. When we say there are 32,000 people across the globe not buying fast fashion right now as we speak, it shows how powerful we are as a movement, as a community. Yeah, and lastly, there are a few of these resources which are added to the slide for you to have a look. You can um, if you want to learn more and deep dive into the topic, there are so many great resources out there. Listening to podcasts. I mean, one of my favorite is Bought Prices by Claire Press. Conscious Chatter is also an amazing one. You can watch documentaries like the one I shared, The River Blue and The True Cost. Consumed is one of the recent one by about Amazon. You can also check out Slow Fashion Movement's resource page on our website, because on that page we are sharing free ebooks. Our team is in support with partners and researchers are writing ebooks for our community at large. You can feel free to go to our website and have a look at that page. You can read books like Love Goes Last by Ursula de Castro. She's one of the founders of Fashion Revolution. You could read book like The Where Next by Claire Press, a book which beautifully shows us the future of fashion, what could be if we are conscious. And again, one more favorite of mine is Psychology of Fashion by Dr. Caroline Mayer, which really helps us decode how brands are really manipulating us to buy more clothes and how we could actually understand the psyche behind consumerism. But lastly, Consumed by Aja Babar is also an amazing book you could actually maybe have a look at. Yeah, and so feel free to, if you want, you can take a screen grab of this page and even ask Sarah, because I'll share all the links with her. You can have a look at these. And now we launched the last slide of today's. I really, really want to thank you all for listening, for interacting, for reflecting while I was speaking, constantly blabbering. But this topic is such that it is very passionate to our, it's very close to our heart, because lastly, and in short, since our presentation is quite lengthy, fast fashion is like the leftover pizza in the fridge. I always use analogy with food and fashion because those are cheap, quick to make. But slow fashion is that, our grandmother's hand-cooked meal. The ingredients are from the kitchen garden, made with love, care, which you can eat it with all the love and gratify yourself, your palate, because you know that it's good for your health, it's good for the planet, it's good for all of us. So buy less, love what you have, and maybe give your closet a little TLC, the tender love care, because our clothes, our garment, our closet, and the planet will thank us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Puja. That was
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, lots of nice reactions from people. There was some interesting questions and comments as well happening in the chat, which we will come back to, I promise. But I'd like to pass on to our second speaker. And I say we will come back to your comments, so please do keep adding them into the chat as we go. So our second speaker is Philippa. Philippa, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
Yes,
Here, ready and
fantastic.
waiting.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Go for it.
Okay, right. I'll just share my presentation with you. Right. Can everyone see that? Can everyone? Yep. Can
Yep.
everyone? Yep. Is that okay? Okay, so just a brief introduction. This is a PhD I did with the Open University, and it's about, that was the title of my PhD, which was Understanding Consumer Behaviour Regarding the Sustainable Consumption of Clothing. So my whole PhD is from the consumer viewpoint. So I just go to the next slide. What's it now? Sorry about that. Okay, so my PhD started with the sustainable clothing goals for consumers, and Puja's touched upon this in her last in her presentation, and I wondered if anybody has come across these before. The goals for consumers, such as buying second-hand, buying fewer, more durable, hiring clothes rather than buying them. Also washing clothes at lower temperatures using eco detergents and hanging them on the line rather than using a tumble dryer, and buying sustainable clothing. And finally, repairing or adapting your clothing. I don't know if people have come across this, but this is where I started from in my PhD. I had a look at these sustainable clothing goals for consumers, and I just thought to myself, well, you know, this all looks fairly straightforward, but how feasible is it? And also, what are people doing now? What are the influences upon their clothing habits? Because I felt that clothing is a very different proposition to any other consumer goods. I felt that clothing was very personal. So I'll go on to the next slide, and I'll just quickly go through how I designed my study. So here is my methodology. I did 10 case studies, which is not a huge amount, but I did quite a lot of depth with them. I targeted women with children. There were a variety of ages. The youngest was in her late 20s, and actually the oldest was in her early 60s, and she had grown-up children, but she was actually caring for a relative at the time. And so the reason why I targeted women with children, because they also tend to be the ones who buy clothes for the family as well. And I targeted people who were friends of friends within my social network. That's how I recruited people. And then I did some shopping trips. I did one online, and then the other one was a physical one at usually at a shopping centre to see what people did, whether they shopped differently by the two different methods. And then I did a wardrobe sample. I would love to have done a full wardrobe audit, but probably would have been too much information. So I just concentrated on 3 items. I looked at a t-shirt and a jean and a pair of jeans. These 2 items were chosen because it was thought that pretty much the majority of people would have both items in their wardrobe. And that actually didn't turn out to be quite true, interestingly enough. And then I did a special item, and this is an item that they chose themselves. And for pretty much everybody, it was a dress of some kind. Usually it was quite often the most expensive item in their wardrobe, or something that they'd had for many years and really treasured. And then finally, I did an interview with my participants, and I looked at all the issues from the previous activities. And we discussed, things that came up during the shopping trips and the wardrobe sampling. And then just sort of generally about habits and why they did what they did, really. And then finally, I talked about sustainability awareness. And finally, right at the end, I talked through the sustainable clothing goals with them. And I left sustainability right at the end. It was really so they wouldn't say, oh yes, I always go to the fair trade shop and buy my clothing, when actually they don't. So I left it right to the end, and for quite a few of them, I was quite surprised. It's sort of like, oh gosh, so this is where the project was going. I didn't see that coming. Right, so I just wanted to talk through the major results, really. So the top most popular sustainable fashion goals for my participants were recycling. Every participant recycled, particularly their children's clothing. There was a lot of passing on with their children. Either they were giving clothing away to other people, or they were receiving clothes from other members of their family. And this behaviour obviously affected their own wardrobe. They recycled a lot more. Because they were recycling their children's clothing, they were recycling their own clothing a lot more. And in fact, for some lucky people, they even had a council collection that collected clothes from outside their house. So obviously, the easier it was, the more they recycled. The second most popular was buying fewer, more durable garments. Without exception, all my participants had favourite places where they liked to shop because of brands or certain retailers. These were their favourites because they usually had garments that they liked. And there was one participant in particular who really liked quite an expensive brand, but she never ever paid full price. So she had quite an interesting, she had it all online. She would mark up what she liked, and then she'd watch and wait till it was on sale, and then she would grab it. She was a real bargain hunter. She had it really down to fine art. It was fascinating watching her. And the third one was willingness to adapt and repair clothing. I was extraordinarily lucky. I had participants who I think were unusually highly skilled. A number of them could and occasionally did make their own clothing. They were highly adept at repairing their own clothing, and some, if they didn't have the time or the skills, knew exactly where they could go to get their clothes adapted or repaired. Now, they did have a little awareness of sustainable issues in clothing, but not a lot. And some, particularly around labour, they suppressed. For example, there was one participant who tended to shop in cheap shops purely because of budget. And she felt guilty because she felt there were probably children making clothes. She said similar age to her daughters, and she felt really guilty about it because of her budget. She had no choice. But overall, the participants had sustainable habits for different reasons. It wasn't for ethical or environmental reasons, but it was usually money, time, and actually buying clothing wasn't that important for them. So this is my final slide. So I'm giving you a very quick canter through the whole thing. But I'm looking at the major influences on clothing choices, and I wanted to share that with you. So it was very remarkable how all of them usually had a specific purpose when they were shopping. They were shopping for clothing needs, something they had found there was a gap in their wardrobe. This is what they really needed right now. So, for example, we had the white skirt, and this particular participant was going on holiday somewhere like Spain, and she said white skirt was ideal because it was practical and white goes with absolutely everything. And the thing is, what was really interesting, because so many of them had an item in mind of what exactly they were looking for when they were shopping, there was an awful lot of frustration with their shopping experiences. And I'm talking here about the fashion system, and Puja touched upon it. We all buy clothing that's within what we call the fashion system. And of course, you have all your micro trends. Now, for all my participants, the latest trends was quite simply not important to them. But this added to the frustration. If a certain style or colour isn't in fashion, you can't find it. It's really hard to find. And so if you're shopping for a specific item, you've identified a need and you just cannot find it because fashion dictates otherwise, they used to get quite frustrated and annoyed. Now, there are a lot of cultural influences on my participants. For example, one of them was South American. So she said the South American way of dressing, it's all about vanity. It's all about showing off the body. And, wearing short shorts and things like that. Obviously, living in Britain, it was a slightly different story. But a lot of her cultural influences still very much evident. She was talking about how she would never, ever go to a friend's house having just gotten out of bed. She said, when you go and visit someone, you dress nicely. It's showing respect. It's showing respect to you and to the other people. And there's another participant also came from California in the Middle East, so had grown up with much warmer temperatures than here. And so her way of dressing was very much layering for the British weather to make sure that she was warm. And practicality was a big factor in all my participants. A lot of them had young children, so a big popular item was actually jeans. You know, this is suitable for home, this is suitable for houseworks. A couple of them work from home doing baking and things like that. So jeans again were a great choice, and also for the school run as well. And practicality and comfort, that was a word which came up for so many, for all of them really. They like their clothes to be comfortable. And of course, the most important factor was style, colour, a particular style such as the Empire style line. That was important for a couple of them. Decoration, sort of vintage. One was very much into 1940s vintage style. One was very into feminine style, looking feminine. Looking feminine was very, very important to her. And sort of tying all these influences together was their identity, how they identified and how their clothing showed their identity and how they felt about themselves. And that was the key factor that tied all these together. And so that comes to the end of it. I think the main point was really there is a very big stereotype of women, you know, they love shopping and they love fashion, and I'm sure an awful lot of women do. But I think my participants showed a very different picture, that shopping and fashion were not actually that important to them. And it was largely due to their life circumstances. They were older. Fashion was important when they were younger, but now they're a bit older. They've got other priorities. They may have young children. They may have a lot on their plate. And I think it's also important to point out that we do have a sort of a bit of a, oh, what's the word? I'm just trying to think. You know, when somebody's not fashionable, we tend to view slightly negatively, you know, that they're not interested. But actually, all of them were interested in presenting themselves well to the world. It was important to them. But just not being dressed in the latest trend was simply the last thing on their mind. They were just not interested. And so, so thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you found that interesting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Philippa. Really interesting research, definitely. And again, yeah, we've got comments and questions coming through on the chat, which we will come back to. Okay, so we have one more speaker, which is Rachel. So I will pass over to Rachel.
There we go. Perfect.
Hey.
There we go. There we go. Okay, so this is how we manage textiles that have been discarded in West Sussex. There are 11 recycling centres across the county. The local ones for Arun and Chichester are obviously at West Hampnett and at Bognor, and another one at Littlehampton. We've had a lot of issues because people want to do the right thing and recycle their textiles, their clothing. The off-takers have become more and more picky about the material, and the reasons are that the global market is really in trouble. The fast fashion has seen the market flooded with this polyester material, with companies like Shein, Temu, Primark, Matalan, Sainsbury's, Tesco's. I could go on and on and on, but the price of used textiles has really dropped through the floor. So people that have made a business out of doing something and keeping clothing in use for longer are not making, there's no money in it anymore for them. So the amount per ton of textiles collected, and that's including charities and recycling textiles, recycling banks, not just at our recycling centres, but at other locations, has dropped so significantly over the last decade. And in fact, over the last 12 months, it has fallen through the floor. And all the costs associated with collecting and sorting the material has increased, and there's those overhead costs have gone up exponentially right across the value chain. And the export market has dried up. There are global surpluses in other countries that took in a lot of the unwanted textiles that we were buying and then not using and making good with. It's almost like a perfect storm. There has been a big growth in the second-hand market. I'm sure many of you have heard of the app Vinted, Depop. I'm sitting next to a little pile of clothes that my daughter has sorted, I've sorted, and we've got for sale on Vinted. The Textiles Recycling Association in the UK would love to see some sort of extended producer responsibility put on manufacturers and makers to get them to pay, contribute something towards the cost of doing something, and preferably the right thing with this material. But it hasn't happened quite as yet. So the market is in a perfect storm. It will require partnership and collaboration between brands, retailers, governments, and not just our government, but governments around the world to better support the reuse and recycling of textiles. And the UK just doesn't have the infrastructure in place at the moment to support all discarded textiles. If we don't get hold of this fast fashion issue, this mass production of these cheap material clothing, there's no choice. It will end up being landfilled or burned and energy recovered from it in energy from waste plants. That will become the default position over reuse. And clearly, that is not going to be great for the environment or for our carbon emissions either. So the county council are aware of this issue. We are working with our contractor Biffa and also other companies that take off our textiles from our recycling centres and bring bags, and looking for better ways. And that could be including things like our community grant fund, which I don't know if some of you may be aware of it, but
there's an end of it.
Sorry?
There you go.
Hello?
Could everyone mute themselves, please, if they're not speaking? Thank you.
Sorry. I thought someone was asking me a question. So yeah, we've got a community grant fund, which one of the recipients of a small amount of funding was the Bognor Repair Cafe, which has recently, well, I think it was first opened in July, which has some textiles repair on offer there. So we're looking at other ways we can support communities to do more to repair, reuse and recycle within their own communities and keep these materials in use for longer. So that's our more strategic aim, because as an organisation, the county council wants to make it easier for residents to use resources sustainably. So we're trying to feed into that aim for the organisation. And then I will just say a little bit about Chichester District Council, because unfortunately they were running quite a large trial for small electricals and textiles to be collected from the doorstep. However, the take up was quite low. So the trial is coming to an end at the end of November, the 28th. But they have already partnered with a brilliant company called Anglo Recycling, and they offer a doorstep collection and some charity giving as part of that, for unwanted clothing, shoes, books, toys, small electricals, broken or in working order. And you just literally book a collection online with Anglo, and this can be anywhere across the county, but Chichester has partnered officially with them. I trialed it here in Bognor, that's where I'm based, and it worked brilliantly. I had a mix of bric-a-brac, books, toys, some small electrical items that didn't work, and lots of clothing and bedding as well, not duvets and pillows, but bedding. And you just bag it up, label it up for them, and they give you a time between, the morning or the afternoon, and they come and collect it from the doorstep, and it worked great. So Chichester have actually partnered with Anglo, but you can, as a resident, book this from anywhere in the UK where they've got a collection, and looking on their website, they pretty much cover the whole of the UK. And I think that is it from me. So I will stop sharing, because that was pretty torturous sharing. and see if I can come back to you on my screen. Yes. And I'm happy to take questions. I'm sure there's things that I haven't covered from a county council perspective. But I did also want to say that I look after a team of brilliant waste prevention volunteers, and we provide waste prevention training, which includes textiles and reuse of textiles, like make, do, and mend, and the clothes swap. So if anyone wants to know more about that, please do. You can pass on the contact details, Sarah. That would be great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. That was great. That was really, yeah, really interesting to get the county council perspective and to hear about some of the things that are happening a little bit locally as well. Although you did mention that one of them is a national project as well. So yeah, thank you to all three of our speakers. That was really, really interesting, and we have had lots of questions and comments in the chat, which I will go to in a moment. But before we do that, I did want to sort of give a little bit of time for anybody who does have a local project that they wanted to just say a few words about. I think Jackie, I'm going to come to you because I know that you had something you want to mention.
Yeah, hi, thank you. That was all really interesting. And on the one hand, Transition Down Chichester has been running swap shops with no funding from anywhere, but just a lot of hard work for about 15 years now. We're not doing it at the moment. Maybe if we had some kind of grant and a little bit more support in community, we might go back to doing general swap shops. So there is a clothes rail that Sue runs at Tuppenny Barn once a month, first Thursday of every month. So while all that's ongoing, and I think out of what we did, so other swap shops like Maureen's and the one in the cathedral have cropped up. So Sue and I have made an exhibition that was at 6 weeks at New Park Cinema, and we've taken it down now. And I'm wondering, Rachel, if there's anywhere else in West Sussex that would like to show this exhibition, which is all about how fashion got in the mess that it's in, what it's doing environmentally, what it's doing to people's lives. We're very pleased with the exhibition, and we've had really good feedback. And it was great that we could show it alongside the Greener Screen films at New Park, but we're now looking for other venues, and you maybe can help us with that and find other places in West Sussex where we could show it. There was some interest from people in Horsham that work with environmental issues, and anyone else anywhere who knows where we could show it, because I loved what Puja said and what everybody said, but we've got this exhibition which covers pretty much all that ground that could be in any environment that people can casually look at and maybe get more information from. One of the really worrying things about collecting materials for recycling is where they end up. And they end up in Ghana or in Mexico, just spread over the land and ruining environments. And so it's not just enough to have people pick it up or to put it in a thing. It's where it actually goes in the end. I was really interested about the community grant fund, and I'm wondering whether also Transition Town, we've done various reskilling projects over the years, and it would be interesting to run a reskilling project for sewing. I mean, part of what we included in our exhibition was a page that said, when I say page, it's an A1, that said made it, looking at pictures through our lives of what our grandmothers or our mothers or we had made to wear and how those had endured. And so the idea of having more reskilling, we were talking a lot about who made this, how was it made, was it fairly traded, was the person properly paid, or these jeans took 10,000 gallons of water. It's all in the exhibition. It covers a real lot of stuff, and I really am pushing for other places where we can show it, because at the moment it's in a drawer. And that's
sounds great, Jackie. Thank you. If anybody has any ideas, I think, did you put your contact details in the chat, Jackie?
I will do.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks,
and
Rachel.
yeah,
I will.
Please do get in touch if you know somewhere that would be suitable.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other local projects that wanted to talk about what they're doing?
Yes, I could say what I am doing.
Great.
Fixing fast fashion. I started fixing fast fashion, which was a national WI initiative back in 2019, before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, it sort of lost its impetus. I picked it up in the autumn of 2022, and I started it at the New Park Centre with the support of Cloth Kits, which is a local supply here. They actually loaned me machines and haberdashery to do it, and I had WI ladies and mostly friends actually who helped me do this project. And I think Sarah Sharp actually supported it too. Thank you, Sarah. And it was really well done. I was very pleased with it. I did do a fashion show, but I didn't have any grant money to do it. The fashion show, I don't know, my fault, I think probably because I didn't advertise it properly. It was good in as much that I had some wonderful photographs, which I was able to use for my future poster, or posters even. And I did it again at the Lavant Memorial Hall the following year in the spring for 3 Saturday mornings. And again, it was very successful. And this time I had Jenny Cole, a lady who helped show how to repurpose a garment and put a new zip into a coat that had broken, and also spinning, which was really interesting. And again, although I advertised it, it didn't really hit the mark. But having said that, I was approached this year, because I didn't do it in 24 and 25, by Vintro in Eastgate Square. They were in South Street, and they sell a lot of second-hand clothing, particularly denim, to young people who go there. And Steve, the guy that runs it, he approached me and he said, Maureen, can you do some more workshops again? Because a lot of youngsters that come in don't know how to alter, repair items that they bought. How I do it is to say, look, if you've got clothing, pre-loved clothing that you want to alter or change, do come and we'll show you how to do it. But I found that we were actually mostly doing it. But no, some ladies could do it. But I'm doing it again next year at the Lavant Memorial Hall, because the Lavant Fete gave me a grant to do it, which I'm really pleased of. And I'm doing it in April, May and June with a fashion show at their fete in June. And then whilst I was doing the swap shop at in Lavant here at St Nick's Church once a month, I combined with Stone Pillow so that I themed the clothes according to the season. And in order that I could do that, I arranged with Michelle there to change over some of the clothes. I'd give her a couple of bags, and I'd take a couple of bags, not a couple of bags, because I didn't have lots and lots of clothing, because I found if you have too many, it puts people off from looking at it. It looks like a jumble sale. So I called it quality clothing and jewellery. And I did really well with the local residents here in Lavant. They really enjoyed it. And I did quite a lot of work, or I have done quite a lot of work with that. But what I want to...
That's great, it sounds like you've been doing lots of, fantastic.
One thing I want to say is about Stone Pillow. We're doing a really big fashion show at the Chichester Marina on the 2nd of December. And they are raising the profile of doing this because they've got so many of the clothes that have been donated to them. And as Rachel was saying, don't know what to do with them because of this big problem that we've got, that the people aren't buying them anymore because there's so many. And so repurposing, in my opinion, is very important. What I also think is very important is that needlework should go back into the school curriculum. Yeah, sorry. Sorry it was so
No,
long.
no,
I had a
no,
lot to say.
that's great. Thank you. Please do share if you've got a link for the Stone Pillow event. Please do drop it in the chat as well.
Yes, I will do.
I don't mean to cut you off. I'm aware that Puja needs to leave because we've hit 3 o'clock. But so I didn't want her to go without us all saying a big thank you to her for coming along. Yes, perhaps we will give a round of applause to all 3 of our speakers. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving up part of your Saturday to be with us. It's been amazing to hear from you all. So we did have some questions in the chat. I think the first one that I saw actually came from Anne. I think you were asking about greenwashing and how reliable things are on labels that we see if we're looking in the shops and we're trying to pick something that looks ethical. How much can we trust what we see on the labels of some of these clothes? Does anybody have any opinions or thoughts they can share on that?
They do have to be fairly honest in what they put on a label. So I think that question might have been related to recycled polyester within a new garment made from, and then yes, that will be the case. And it's a bit like where you've seen recycled content in plastic packaging. There is an extended producer responsibility on plastic packaging now, so it's in there. It's to push them to use recycled material within a new item, so that it generates a market for that material. So yeah, if it says it's recycled content, then it has to be.
Would you know how energy intensive it is to recycle those materials?
Quite.
I mean, I'm asking you a really difficult technical question.
Yeah,
I know.
It is, but then if you think about how energy intensive it is to produce something made of cotton plus all the water, then you're always doing this, aren't you, with
Yes.
being sustainable. But for me, I try to avoid polyester clothing if I can. I can't all the time, purely because it's fossil fuel, and I've spent the last, I don't know how many years trying to have less plastic in my life, and yeah, it's difficult. And it's interesting. I will just say we do a junior citizens event in Crawley every September with over 2,000 year 6 school children, and I'm always shocked. We hold up a little plastic it's got an actual bin bag, like a black bin bag inside, to represent oil, and we ask them what they think plastic is made of. And I'm always amazed that about 80% of the children don't know that plastic or polyester is made from oil. But also, more worryingly, over 50% of the teachers don't either. So there's a thing around education, isn't there? So we're doing our bit, but none of the other district and boroughs run a junior citizens scheme anymore, which is such a shame.
Oh,
There we go.
but you still do?
Crawley does.
Oh, Crawley does. Okay.
It is worth looking at the labels though, because you know, once you know a little bit, when you know where it's come from, so you might know a bit more about the conditions people are working in, because you know a bit about that country, as well as how the material's produced.
Definitely.
But I think also the water, the amount of water being used is increasingly important, actually, but also staggering sometimes. You just don't realise.
That film, River Blue, Transition Chichester, showed that quite a few years ago, when we used to have quite a busy film night, and it was shocking to see what the denim was doing in rivers. So I do recommend that film. It is really worth watching.
If you want to look at a really shocking picture, have a look at the Aral Sea and how it was around 50 years ago, how big it was and how small it is now. And it's really shocking because an awful lot of that water has been diverted to irrigate cotton. I'm trying to, I can't think off the top of my head if there's any particular film, but if you just say Google the Aral Sea, it will bound to, it's a real disaster. an absolute environmental disaster, and it's largely due to cotton.
And I mean, I can't remember which country it is, but it's in that part of the world. Quite a few years ago now, I heard that in the summer, when it was time to start picking the cotton, school children were literally being bussed off the streets to go and work in the fields to produce that, to pick that cotton for the fast fashion industry.
Yeah, I've heard that story as well. Yeah.
Yep. Basically, we all need to keep in use for longer the materials we've already got, and just keep trying to just keep it going, make it a circular economy. You know, we do t-shirt bag making with younger people where there's no sewing involved, just cutting the sleeves off the t-shirts. I'm sure you've probably all seen the t-shirt bags, but it's so easy. You just cut slits at the bottom and knot it. And it just gets them thinking about reusing in a different way, rather than just the t-shirt might have a little stain on it, or they've outgrown it and you know, or it's not fashionable anymore. They can still do something with that material, and it's just giving it a different life. And I think we need to do that across all materials, not just textiles. But and that's really what my team and the volunteers that we have go out and do in the community, talk to people, just try and tiny little mindset changes. And if you could just nudge a little, eventually we may get there. But it's a huge problem globally.
There's another thing that, sorry, had you finished?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, that's really interesting. When we've got a green government, they might be able to do what the government did in the war when it brought in the utility scheme, so that fashion was rationed, and what fabrics could be used was limited. And so even all the big designers had to make their clothes within certain parameters. So during the Second World War, it was positive. It was possible to bring in a system where you couldn't just make anything with anything and charge anything. You had to use certain, even Norman Hartnell or whoever it was, had to use certain fabrics that met certain criteria, that everyone had coupons that they could obtain clothing with, and it had to be durable, it had to be lasting, and there were limits put in about what could happen. And it's just amazing that when there's a war on, they can do that. But when we're in a state of crisis on the planet, no one's doing it yet.
That's really interesting, Jackie, because that's actually kind of relates to what I was going to ask as well, because I think we have talked quite a lot about what individuals can do, and of course we're all aware, obviously, that the fossil fuel industry invented this carbon footprint thing as well, and perhaps they're still doing that with the fossil fuels and with clothes. So perhaps I'd be really interested to hear people's ideas about what we could do policy-wise, maybe locally, nationally, internationally, what needs to be done or what could be done, do you think? That's a big question. I'm just going to put that out there and see what people say.
The thing Rachel said, education is really important, that people understand what's happening when they buy their 10th pair of jeans or whatever it is, or something polyester that they just take for granted. So education is important. It's all about profit though, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, well, that leads me to what I was going to say. How are we going to stop? At the moment, it's two massive Chinese manufacturers, Shein and Temu, literally flooding our market with cheaply produced, low quality material goods. And because they ship in individual packaging rather than containerfuls at a time, they're also not paying import taxes that other companies pay. Because I'll just give you an example. Hollister is another brand, and they ship containers at a time, so they pay import tax on the container of their item. But the way Shein does it is it's individual packages and parcels for individual people, and so they get around, because the value of the item is less than the threshold, they don't pay import tax or import duty. So we need government to really clamp down on things like that, where they're they're finding loopholes in our tax system, and they're flooding our market with cheap quality material. Yeah, that's my personal opinion. Maybe I'm not wearing my lanyard till I say that, but that's my personal opinion.
So would you know if there is any move within government to actually close those loopholes?
I think there is. There's definitely been talk of it, and America have done it, and they've literally collapsed UPS at the moment because they've changed the import levies, and the parcel delivery services like FedEx, UPS, etc. are struggling to keep up with the constant changes to these import duties. So I think we need a more cohesive approach than America have taken at the moment. But yes, we need to stop incentivizing China to flood our markets with this material. But more worryingly is looking at us as a nation or as a country. We buy so much more clothing than our fellow people in Europe on the continent. Why is that? It's because we're being bombarded as consumers telling us we need this stuff, and we don't, and we've got to change our mindset somehow. But why are we buying 5 times as many clothes as a French person? It doesn't make sense, does it? What's different about us to them? What's different in our values and culture to theirs? Yeah, and they buy.
They probably go for quality.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the old stereotype of a Parisian woman was of a very chic, classily dressed, expensive clothing, expensive quality materials. But I don't think that holds fast now, that stereotype. But there's definitely an issue, isn't there? There's a disconnect between us and our European brothers and sisters, because they're not spending anywhere near as much on clothing and disposable clothing as we are.
Yeah, can I ask Philippa, is that something that you looked at or you've come across in your research?
Not within mine, but I'm always sort of keeping my eye open for things. And actually, I don't know if people heard about Safia Mini. She started the brand People Tree, which is an ethical brand, and she's just come up recently with a white paper, which to be honest, I haven't looked at in detail yet, but I believe she does address some of the issues that you've brought up. For example, the importing of Shein. I think she does address those issues, and obviously I don't think she's involved with People Tree anymore, but I think she's campaigning now to change things within the fashion industry, and she has started with this white paper, which I only downloaded very recently and haven't really had a chance to look at properly. But that's one thing. But also in France, they've also brought in a law fairly recently about the circular economy. So they're cutting down on waste that way. And again, I haven't looked at that in detail. But I think those are 2 areas to start with to see how we can change things within the UK. I think there'll be 2 good starting points, and see how things are working in France from that perspective.
What's the name of the person who's put the white paper?
Safia Mini. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Please.
Put her name.
You. Yeah. Isabel, did you want to say something?
Partly just a few things really. Really interesting. Sorry, I came in a bit late on the discussion, but fantastic, very much sort of thing I'm interested in. France, of course, has a long history of opposing things like fast food as well. They've got their value system is just less. They're not presumably somehow not as influenced by America. I think our country is so follows so closely behind America, and although we all know all the kind of the changes that have happened in our recent lifetime that have come straight from there, really. And China just produces stuff to satisfy our markets. People have been kind of encouraged to want everything to be cheaper and cheaper, haven't they? So that's what we did. We sold out, basically. We sold out to China. We sold our soul to China about 20 years ago, I think it was, probably. So everything gets made there now. People want the cheap stuff and they get it. You're absolutely right about education. I work with young people. They can't wait to go to Shein and get something. Oh, I got something new. I mean, this is where we're up against. We're up against that on one side, and then on the other side, there are some amazing new textiles and things being developed by individual kind of designers and people who are trying hard to make a difference. But I see it as two sort of ends of a massive long spectrum, of the waste society, which covers everything, doesn't it? Not just clothing, but also the thing to be careful of in polyester recycling. Although it's really brilliant that there's a huge number of high street stores. I think they sign up to something, don't they, now, to show that they're trying. And one of the things that's why there's so much stuff now with recycled polyester. But of course, as soon as you wash it, it sheds the microfibers. So that's another thing we've got to watch out for. We're in a sort of web of, our own making, I'm afraid. But everything that people can do, and politically, the more environmentally aware politicians there are, the better, I guess, in terms of this policy making. But no, it's very, very interesting, and it applies to all areas of our lives. But yeah, really, I'm in Arundel, and we're thinking of having a clothes swap quite soon, and I might contact you, Jackie, about your exhibition. Possibly it would only be a day, but I'll drop you a line.
It would be great to find.
I might try and find somewhere in Arundel anyway.
Yeah, it would be great to show it somewhere in Arundel.
Yeah.
Where were you thinking of having the swap in
Our
Arundel?
clothes swap will be in the Norfolk Centre, which is where we do once a month. We do a repair cafe and recycling stall. We have the Arundel Wombles. It's a little group of us who.
I ought to know where that is, but I don't.
The Norfolk Centre is right next to the main entrance of the castle and opposite the museum, right there on the as you go, you can't the main east of Arundel. It's just off the high street. So yeah, once a month we recycle hard to recycle stuff that they can't put in their bins.
It's great. I mean, so much going on, and it's great that we
anyway, yeah, sorry, that's enough
across the different areas of West Sussex.
I'll be in touch with you more, Jackie.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks, Isabel.
Thanks, everyone.
Benedict has his hand up as well. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to, a few things people have mentioned. So like this idea of like, we are a unique case in Europe where, we do consume more. And I think a big part of that is advertising. Like the Green Party has some great policies it's working on around like ethical advertising. So this doesn't just include fashion. This extends to things like fast food and stuff as well. Like unfortunately under capitalism, whoever has the most money controls the advertising and controls our public spaces and what we see. And do we really want monetary interest to be the deciding factor of like what we see while everyone walks around the country? Like, no, not really. We should have regulations on these things, and that's something we talk about quite a lot. And then the other thing, I mean, I don't know if people have really talked about this a lot, but I'd really like to see some sort of investigatory / regulatory body, sort of like a fair trade, but not a private company. I think something like that could be really interesting in terms of like actually auditing companies, because I think the fact is, because of the way capitalism works, you have to compete, you have to be the cheapest, otherwise you'll be out-competed by someone who is doing the unethical thing that can cut their costs. So until we start auditing these companies and start actually looking into their supply chains and calling them out when they're doing things that are illegal, fining them, holding them to account, I don't think things are going to change. So yeah, if anyone knows something about that, I'd be really interested to hear about it. That's me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, no, a good point about the Green Party's stance on ethical advertising and stuff as well. And I think that's perhaps something to think about at local level as well, in terms of planning permissions for advertising hoardings and that type of thing as well. Maybe the types of things that local councils have some influence over, what they can promote and what they have, some control over. Not obviously, it's a global system, so yeah, it might be limited. But Anne, as well, you had your hand up as well.
I just wanted to get back to the idea of the winter coat stand that they had in Chichester a couple of years ago. Was that Transition who organised that? Do people know?
It might have been 4 Streets.
Yeah,
I think it's 4 Streets.
Yeah.
Because that would be great to do again, because not only will it recycle winter coats, but then people who desperately need one have got an opportunity to just help themselves.
The other place where winter coats are needed is for asylum seekers in the community.
The food bank are organising winter coats.
Yeah.
Food bank, yeah.
I mean, the thing about that particular scheme was it was just so easy, because it was a coat stand by the town hall. You literally just brought your coat in, hung it up, and that was it.
Yeah, B Corp. Yeah.
Okay, we are coming up to 3:30 now. Did anybody have any other questions or comments that they want to? I know a few people have had to leave us, but is there anything else anybody would like to add? I'm gonna make sure we kind of collate all the comments and links and things that people have been sharing. So we'll make sure that we get those out to everybody as well.
I just wanted to thank Sarah for organising.
Yes,
But
I would say the same. Thank
you've
you
done
so
a
much.
great job,
So
Sarah. So thank you very much, and thank you for all the speakers who came. They were great. Yeah.
Fantastic, they really were. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. And yeah, I will send out a follow-up email to everybody who signed up, so you will get all the details of where we're going to share the recording, and I say all those links and things. But yeah, we can keep the conversation going as well. I wouldn't be doing my job as a membership officer for the party if I didn't say join the party if you're not already a member. But do come along to our other events as well if you can. We'd love to keep these conversations going and support each other in these topics. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.